Okay, yes, so this is what we're up to, the update for February and a little bit on the autumn equinox. I'll be covering the lineup of planets that are there in Aquarius at the moment, what it means, the fact that Venus and Mercury are together in Pisces, the north nodes in Pisces, and therefore the role of Pluto, which is the esoteric ruler of Pisces. I'll be looking at an example chart. Someone has volunteered that I can use their chart. And then I'll look at the autumn equinox. So the first example chart will be about transits that are happening sort of in February. And then the second one, which is actually for Sophia, is looking at the transits a little bit later, closer to the equinox. So let's have a look. So I've cast this chart here for the 12th of February, and I just randomly decided to do it for Canberra. Yes, and so you'll notice the lineup of the Aquarian planets. So here's Pluto in 4 degrees, just past the 4th degree. Mars, one of the non-sacred planets, in the cross quarters of the fixed sign. And of course, the cross quarters are always very important because they're the deepest issue in any sign. And so we have a non-sacred planet sitting in the deepest, let's say, the worst behavior of the Aquarian energy, which can be, of course, Aquarians are known to be eccentric, and that can sometimes happen. Also extremely mental, very focused and one-eyed, and very hard because it's a fixed sign, very hard with the fixed sign sometimes to shift off track. And then we have Vulcan, and of course we're just learning what the outer planets mean, and Vulcan in Aquarius, to my mind, is to do with bringing the spiritual purification down into the rational mind. It's sort of the equivalent, really, of defragging a computer. It's all blocked up and won't work properly. Kind of have to clear out all the peripheral thoughts and things that are getting in the way so that the soul can make higher connections uninterrupted through the lower mind. And then, of course, the sun. Okay, now I did look at the Sabian symbol for Pluto, and it talked about a council of ancestors. Now, remembering that Pluto on its lowest vibration is the reason I'm looking at Pluto there is because it's the esoteric ruler of the destiny point, the north node in Pisces. So if we want to know where on earth we're meant to be going, humanity, well, it's something to do with choice. Choice because of the double sign, yeah? And we can either disappear into a Neptunian approach to putting our heads in the sands, or we can realize we have to surrender and give something up, yeah? Because that's the Pluto, which is the esoteric ruler of the north node. And of course, people who are born in the early part of Aquarius, like myself, anyone born in that sort of third week would have had the third week of January, will have had the Pluto hanging around their sun. And, there's a lot to let go and surrender. So that's up to individuals to figure out what is it that they have to let go of that they've been attached to. But esoterically, they have the council of ancestors. And I started thinking about that in terms of, well, we all have our ancestors, our family tree, but then who are the spiritual ancestors? And it occurred to me that we all have affiliations to different groups or spiritual pathways or particular lifetimes. So to my mind, the Pluto says, let go of something that you've outgrown and align to your ancestral or your spiritual lineage. Yeah. And then Mars, as I said, sitting in the cross quarters, right, this is where deep issues are buried in the 15th degree of any sign of the zodiac. So anything buried in the 15th degree of a fixed sign of the zodiac, it's something you've got to pull out that's really stuck. Yeah. And the degree for that is a big businessman at his desk. Well, I looked at that and all I could think about was the Dark Brotherhood and who their business and them trying to pull the strings. Yes. So the question that I think it's good to ask ourselves is, what is my ancestral spiritual path? Where have I been? What can I draw upon from the past? And who are the ancestors who are a few steps ahead of me on the path that will help me going forward? I just realized I've forgotten to get rid of all of you, but now I've got to make myself spotlighted. 1 second. Spotlight for me. Oh, how do I do that, Chandra? Try that. See if that works. Yep. Okay. Beg your pardon. So yeah, so this image here really is because of, as theosophists, we know that you can be on any path and find a spiritual teacher, an ancestor of spiritual lineage, and follow that path, and it will take you to the heart. It will take you to the center. It will take you to the source. And of course, we've had fantastic evidence of this with the Tibetan monks walking up the east coast of America, walking for peace, and the global support for that, and the realization that they just say, well, I want peace within myself, you know. But your spiritual path, look, it might not be connected to a spiritual group. It could be connected to the earth or to land. I mean, I've got a very strong sort of sense of an indigenous connection. You know, I know for myself, I've wandered around all the ancient Celtic sites in Ireland, Scotland, and wherever I can find them, because I've got this sort of sense of, these are my people. I've been to these places before. This is my lineage is connected to the Celts. Yeah, but I'm just using that as a bit of an example. You could have a very strong lineage that connects you into the Buddhist teachings. You know, maybe you've had lots of Oriental incarnations, or maybe you've spent many lifetimes in the Himalayas. Yeah, and so you can plug into that lineage of spiritual ancestry, which I think is incredibly important, because if we don't plug in to the ancestry and the lineage, then we've got nothing to hold on to. Yeah. This is an image here of an Aboriginal Australian woman, and another one here of the Native American tradition. And you can see my bent is I have this connection to land and the indigenous, but you've got to find what yours is. And another image that I put up there, another place that in my travels through Europe, when I met the gypsies in the south of France, I felt like, these are my people. I could stay with these people for a long time. They've got horses. They have divination. You know, they live outside society. They're sort of considered rebels, I suppose, and they have very, very strong spiritual lineage. So I'm just using those as a bit of an example to remind you that we need our seatbelt. 2026 and going forward. And I think the seatbelt is the spiritual lineage and the spiritual groups. Okay, let's have a look at the Venus-Mars conjunction in Pisces. All right. Venus-Mercury conjunction in Pisces, I beg your pardon. And the reason I've picked on that is because Mercury is right on top of the North Node. Yeah. And so Mercury traditionally is associated with communication, yeah, and interpersonal dialogue and things like the internet. And again, it's in that double sign of choose. Do we want to take the high path, or are we going to take the easy path of the ego? Yeah, but Mercury is very, very close to Pisces. Yeah, and Venus and Mercury together will often give profound inspiration or visions or insights that will connect us into our higher understanding. And so therefore, people who are born, who have their birthday, you know, with the sun in Pisces, somewhere from when the sun enters Pisces around the 19th of February through for the next week or so, will have this Venus-Mercury right on top of your sun. That's not happening yet, but we're not that far away from it. And of course, we have an eclipse on the 17th. So you'll have an eclipse on your sun if you're born around that sort of 19th to 26th of February, and you'll have Venus and Mercury hanging around the sun on the destiny point. So that sort of choice of, do I follow the high path, which means I have to give something up and find my allegiance to my tribe, my group, my spiritual lineage, or do I just believe what I see or hear in the media and take the path of least resistance? That's the question. But of course, that's just people who are Pisceans. But this North Node, this destiny point, it falls somewhere in everyone's chart. Yeah. So wherever the Pisces is in your chart is like an arrow that says go that way at the moment. Yeah. So in my case, it's going through my 9th house, and it doesn't take much for me to get involved in the higher wisdom teachings or groups or things like that. But for everybody, just identify where the North Node's falling in your chart, and because it's an arrow, and in order to take that arrow, you have to let something go. Okay, the example chart. This was Katerina, who said she would be here tonight, but she's not here. Never mind, we'll talk about the chart anyway. So I'm not going to do a great in-depth on the chart. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that jump out in this particular chart. So this is a Libran, born with the sun on Neptune, 4 planets in Libra. Yeah. Now, for a Libran, you immediately know that the Venus is important, because on a personal level, Venus has got that strong connection to Libra. And then esoterically, Uranus is the soul ruler. So the soul ruler in this chart's been sort of put over there on the sunset position a little bit. It's like trying to reach for something that's a bit out of reach, and you've got to make a really big stretch. Yeah. So there's obviously a challenge there to pick up the transformational soul energy. And most Librans, general comment, I suppose, but Librans often get kind of caught in a comfortable space. And if they're not careful, they get into a rut. Yeah. And they really need sometimes a bit of a kick or a push to kind of get the momentum happening. It's the middle sign of the zodiac, and there's a certain amount of resting that happens. Yeah. And then I notice in this particular chart that the destiny point, the North Node, is in the 20th degree of Aquarius in the 2nd house. So clearly this is something to do with, and I immediately notice that this is empty, this quadrant's empty. So this tells me that to manifest the destiny involves hard work, utilizing the skills that this individual has, working outside of the system, if you like, we're Aquarian energy. And in order to manifest the life skills and the money and all of those things, this individual needs to have picked up the planet Uranus. Yeah, because you know, when Uranus is being used optimally, then it's transformational for groups. But it would be easy to feel marginalized and pushed out and on the edge and unable to manifest things for the personal self, work, job, money, things like that. But that's just a few comments about that chart. And now what I've done, and you can't see it because I've covered it up, on the outer circle, I have the transits for the 12th of February. That's today. So here's that person's chart on the inside of the circle. And then I have the outer planets, where they are today, sitting around the outside. And you see, the reason why this is such an important time, this early few months of 2026, is because of the lineup of the planets. Okay, so there's the 4 in Aquarius that I talked about, and there's 3 and the destiny point, the North Node, in Pisces, and then there's 2 in Aries. So this whole quadrant that in this particular person's chart was empty when they were born is now filled with the outer planets and of course the sun, Venus and Mercury, but quite a lot of focus. So that's what we call a first quadrant focus. And you see, the thing is, if this was a teenager, you'd say, well, they're building their identity, they're discovering who they are. If it's somebody born in the 50s, you say, okay, well, the old identity's gone. It's been removed. You've thrown it away. You've lost it. There's Pluto in the first house, and a new identity based on what this person can give to others is what the planetary lineup is asking. Yeah. So having all these planets hanging around the first and the second house is really saying, well, don't look back over your shoulder at what you've lost. Look forward and see where and who and how you can use your skills to help others. Use your soul skills. Now, Uranus is being activated, you'll notice, by the planet Jupiter. So I don't have any doubt that this person has many skills to draw upon, creative, transformational, therapeutic, and they need to be shared in groups. Okay, what have I written here? At the moment, that's today, Mars is sitting in the cross quarters of Aquarius. But the 19th of February, that's next week, it's going to be on top of the destiny point. Yeah. So what do we do? Does the ego use the Mars and say, I feel separated, marginalized, and I'm stuck and I can't move? Yeah. Or to find the capacity to draw upon the courageous energy of Mars and say, where and who and how and in what way can I accelerate forward to help others? So that's one of the things that I'd suggest to this person is in the modern lingo, it's kind of pull your finger out, don't feel sorry for yourself, pull your finger out and move. And then when the sun moves into Pisces, and you'll see it's not there yet, it'll be about a week's time. But when the sun moves into Pisces and it will begin to activate, what is it going to activate? Well, when the sun moves into Pisces, some of these other planets also continue moving in Pisces. And what happens in this person's chart is you see the Venus in Scorpio and you see the Uranus. So that's a trine. It's sort of one side of what could be a water grand trine. So between the 4th and the 16th of March, all these planets the sun will move up into Pisces, Venus and Mercury will be there, the north node there, and they will form a water grand trine. You can't see it drawn, but you've got to imagine a number around about, 18 or 20 sitting there over that 2-week period. So this is an opportunity, and it creates a pattern called a kite. And it's hard to explain it because it's not drawn here, but astrology is all based on numbers. So you see the number 20 there in Scorpio, and then you see the number 18. Then you notice the number 21. So when some of these Piscean planets come within range, within 5 degrees of the number 20, you'd have a big blue triangle set up there, the water grand trine, and then you'd have a kite that's sextiles across to the ascendant. And what happens with the water and earth kite is that we effortlessly can get up above our life, see the way we've been sabotaging it, let go of the past, recognize there's hard work, old karma to be cleared in order to show commitment and be there for others. Yeah. So that's all the potential of this water earth kite. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful patterns that are running in March. A bit tricky around the 19th of February because we don't know whether the person's able to use the motivational pull your finger out energy of Mars, or whether it's just going to feel stuck and isolated. Yeah. So that's a choice. Yeah. And the other thing that I notice about this person's chart is the planet Saturn. Okay. So we know that Saturn and Neptune are Saturn's very close to moving into Neptune, into Aries and conjuncting Neptune, and immediately notices in this person's chart that the 5.5 degrees Aries is the axis going from the bottom of the chart, the IC, to the midheaven. Now, this is a very serious review of the incarnation when the planet Saturn arrives at that 5.5 degrees Aries, not till March or April. Yeah. So I would be saying to the person, well, and look, some people, when Saturn's on the on the IC will, renovate their houses. Someone else will have a parent pass away. Someone else will become a grandparent. But esoterically, this is associated with the karmic review of the life. And the reason for this is because the IC is the entry point for the spiritual energies that come from that spiritual lineage. Yeah. So one needs to sort of take stock of one's life and make decisions. What am I going to do? How do I use my talents and my skills? They're transformational. It takes effort. I can connect with people on an emotional and a spiritual level. That's the water grand trine that's going to be set up. But serious, yeah, serious effort is required when Saturn crosses the IC. And so what I'm trying to do here is give you an idea, an understanding of what sort of choices and decisions and crossroads that we're all being faced with as these outer planets move. Because if you see them all, and this is the February lineup, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, I suppose, even if I don't count Chiron, it reminds me of tsunami waves that are coming. Yeah. And so we either sink or swim. Okay. And the person who said she would be here, so I could ask her for feedback on that, is not here. Now, normally when I talk to a client about the chart, I tend to be less explicit, maybe, or less confrontational, to make space for, because, the astrology, looking at someone's chart, from an outside perspective, it's very easy for me to see what the energies want, but it's tricky business to integrate it and to make choices, and it takes us the time it takes to assimilate these things. Yes, okay. I think that's all I was going to say about that chart. And I've given you this little image here, something I saw online yesterday, which I thought was a pretty good summation of some of the key things that are going on. We have the solar eclipse, although I saw some people posting that this was a North American eclipse, which is not true at all. It's actually Antarctic. Some people who post strange things online are not astrologers at all. That alignment of Venus and Mercury, which can bring in wonderful high intuition, visions, dreams, a sense of knowing, and a call to sort of walk and talk our principles. That's there on the 26th of February. And they just put that there for the people who've got the telescopes, I suppose, to see. And I may well do something about the blood moon eclipse for the 3rd of March. I've very briefly had a look at that chart, but I might talk about that down the track. And the Venus-Saturn conjunction in March, yeah. And I look at all that and I go, okay, this period is the eclipse window. Remember when I was talking to you about the eclipse a couple of weeks ago? I said to you, we're in a 6 weeks eclipse window. So, if the Americans decide to bomb Iran or invade Cuba or any other crazy scheme, if anything big like that happens between now and the 10th of March, then it may well take 3 years to play out. So any big global event, everything that's going on about the Epstein files being revealed, which is happening right in the middle of this eclipse period, and I haven't been following it at all, but it's like one would hope that the shadow of the Dark Brotherhood and their puppets in the military industrial complex are being revealed. Yeah. Okay. And of course you see, I look at it and say, well, the reason why all of this is happening is because we're approaching the Aries full moon and of course the new moon also. You see, because Saturn's are moving into Aries, Neptune's in Aries, Chiron's in Aries, and then we're having an Aries new moon and an Aries full moon. So the Aries full moon is the 2nd of April, the Easter Festival of renewal, and the new moon will be probably 14 days before it. I haven't put the date there. So to my mind, this is all the lead up to the complete change as the planetary frequency shifts more and more into the Aries energy. And I'm sure I mentioned it previously that the sign of Aries has got a great connection to the Shambhala energy. And the Shambhala energy brings the will of God down via the planet Uranus and through the constellation of Aries. And so anyone who's got a bit of Aries or Libra knows all about it. Okay, and I've sort of jumped forward here to the 21st of March, and I thought I'd have a bit of a brief look at the autumn equinox. And the reason for this is because we're focusing upon this Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 0 degrees of Aries, because 0 degrees of Aries is kind of like, well, I mean, almost everybody has in their life an event where they know if they take one more step forward, everything will change. Yeah. And that's kind of a bit of a metaphor for 0 degrees Aries for humanity. You know, once we go through the portal on the 21st of March, and the sun moves into Aries, then it joins that, and then we'll have the sun and Saturn and Neptune and Chiron and the Shambhala energy. I was talking to Zachary late this afternoon, and I was just sort of commenting that people on the spiritual path are used to a downflow of potent energy during the spiritual festivals. But then normally what would happen is we'd get a rest, we'd get a breather, we'd get 2 or 3 months to integrate that energy. But my understanding, my experience is that this Shambhala energy is just falling like rain from heaven to cleanse the Piscean age, and the tap's not being turned off. So the $6 million question really is, where's the Aries in your chart? Yeah, come the 3rd week of March, where's the Aries in your chart, or what are these Aries planets doing in your chart? What aspects are they making? And I mean, I'm always a little busy in January. You know, people decide they want to have their chart done, but I've been very busy, and now it's February and it's still starting to peter off a little bit because everybody knows something's up. What on earth's going on in my chart? Okay, again, I've just randomly decided to do this autumn equinox, and of course it's the spring equinox chart for the Northern Hemisphere, and all the planets would look the same, but they'd be, the chart would be flipped upside down, for instance, somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere. But let's have a look at it. So there is, let me just get that out of the way. There is the actual entry of the sun into 0 Aries. By the time we get to the 21st of March, Mars has moved on and it's almost 2. Saturn's moved up to 4. Vulcan's moved on into Aries. Venus, that is currently back here in Pisces, is now up there in Aries. And here we are 20 days after the new moon. So yeah, the new moon must be around the 1st of March. Is that right? Or maybe the day before? Yeah. And then we have Chiron. So currently we have an Aquarian stellium and 3 planets in Pisces. Yeah. Now, you know, that's effectively 2 stelliums. 2 stelliums, how to describe it? You know, when if you're ever watching a horse race and you'll see one horse out the front and you'll see a whole group all running together and it looks very, very dramatic. Well, that's what a stellium's like. The planets are all running together. But here we've got, what did I say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with Uranus out in front leading the pack. So an Aries stellium is, well, you know, it's fire by friction and it's electric fire. Fire by friction is the issues we're running up against in the world, you know, where nothing's the same, everything's different, and there's an urgency and a pace. So you feel like you're caught in the middle of the pack. And the Sabian symbol for Mercury, where have I seen it? Oh, for the Sabian symbol for the Pisces. And the reason why Mercury is important, because it's the esoteric ruler of the Aries stellium. So the Aries stellium is not about competition. It's not about getting somewhere first. It's not about being the best. It's not about a large ego. It's being driven from the higher plane by Mercury in Pisces. Yeah, and the Sabian symbol says the race begins. So there's that theme that I'm getting of the horse race. Yeah, and a jockey spurs his horse to great speed. So to me, the horse is the ego, and the jockey is the soul. And on the one hand, Mercury is in Pisces, which does tend to meander or even slow down, but it's impossible to meander or slow down on your spiritual practices and still stay in the game, stay in the race, not get left behind. You know, one of the things that our spiritual teacher, my spiritual teacher, the Lady Ananda, one of the messages that I'll commonly get either for myself or for clients in healing, people in Ananda's group, is for people to keep up. Short, sharp messages to keep up. Yeah. Now, you don't want to be falling out of the pack and being left to your own devices, because if you do, you'd end up feeling isolated, alone, or abandoned. Yeah. So we need to orient to our spiritual lineage, our group, our ancestors, recognize that the energy is accelerated and keep up and not take the easy option. That's how I would describe the Equinox chart, and there's probably a great deal more I could say about it. Well, there's the Earth directly opposite the Aries, trying desperately to maintain balance and equilibrium. And a lot of people feel like they're falling out of balance. They're losing their emotional, their mental, their psychological, their physical balance. Yeah, but you can't balance. Balance has to be earned every single day. Balance practices of living. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. And now I'm going to shift to the other example chart. So this is someone born in the 40s who's a Leo. Yeah. So let's look at it. There's the sun in Leo, and there's a Vulcan in Leo, and then there's Leo rising. So what we have here is effectively a double Leo. Now, and then it's hard not to immediately notice the Virgo stellium, Jupiter, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and Mercury. So a great deal of intensity around health and service. Yeah. So a person with that sort of pattern could be a nurse, could be someone with 10 children, could be someone who's brought up their grandchildren, could be somebody who's worked for decades in service, selfless service. They could be a volunteer. They could be involved in the health arena in one way or another. They could be working with children, the double Leo. Could be an educator. They could be working with their children, healing their children. They could be working with their grandchildren. Any or all of those things are part and parcel of that double Leo with a swag of planets in Virgo. One of the things that I always do when I first look at a chart is decide what phase of the moon the person's born under. There are 8 phases of the moon, and the reason for this is the phase of the moon will give the impulse that the soul is seeking. And this is a new moon chart. Yeah. If it had been 1, 2, that's right, isn't it? 27 Leo. Yeah, so it doesn't move to the crescent phase of the moon until early Libra. So that tells me that this particular incarnation for this person is meant to be trusting the self. Yeah. Having the courage to push the self, to get out of the comfort zone, to step forward when there's no one else to follow. And of course, someone with a Virgo stellium generally feels safer in a crowd, safer in the background. They're not important. They're just the person doing the background work. But this, the new moon theme is associated with leadership. Yeah. So the soul wants leadership, wants the person to step forward and step to the front. So a double Leo can do that. A Virgo stellium goes, oh, you got the wrong person. No, no, not me, not me. And hopefully this is something that's been integrated and learned. Okay, other things, and I'm not going to talk about the whole chart, but other things that are immediately noticeable are the very elevated Uranus in Gemini, which will give a metaphysical and occult inclination and a profession along those lines. So I would say to the person, well, you might have started out working in an office, you might have been doing sort of some kind of menial work, then you may have graduated to working with health and well-being, but what are you doing with the esoteric or the occult? Yeah, because that's the Uranus. There's this sort of need to sort of bring the bigger, broader picture into the world. Okay, and of course, the Achilles heel. You see Chiron? Everyone has an Achilles heel. There's Chiron right on top of the moon. It says, oh, this is the weak point in the chart. There's a weak point in everyone's chart. So what's the weak point when Chiron's on the moon? Well, it could be the mother, could be the children. It could be an elderly parent. You've got a nurse. It could be a child who's very ill. Yeah, there's something to do with health and service and the family and possibly the lineage of the family. Yeah. And one of the things that happens when there's a lot of Virgo is people tend to forget about themselves, overlook themselves, so busy looking after everyone else. So this person's very fortunate to have Leo rising that says, okay, and learn to love the self, learn to be there for the self, learn to be unconditional for the self. Okay, and now I've taken the transits, and again, you can't. Maybe you can just see it. The outer circle is the equinox chart for the 21st of March. So there's all those Aries planets, and where have they fallen? In the 8th house. Now, this person didn't have any planets at all in the 8th house, and the relationship between all that Aries and all that Virgo, and I'm not going to go into the individual aspects, is basically in conjunction. It's 5 signs away. 1 sign, Taurus, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a health and service theme that's happening by the transits, which the person has in their life. Now, often when it's the 8th house, it's associated with death and dying. So one person with a pattern like that might find that they seem to have people that they know who are passing over or getting ill or dying, and they've got a role to play in that transitional work. Yeah, I don't. And unless I spoke to the person, I wouldn't know specifically what it might be. But the focal energy is the 7th house. Well, the Pluto's in the 6th house. The Piscean planets are in the 7th house. All this, the whole new chapter. And of course, not only is the 8th house to do with death and dying, it's also about intimacy. So it's our life partner. Yeah. So I'd be asking the person, what's happening in your major relationship with your life partner? Are they or are you on a complete new page? Is there some big lesson or learning? Is there some challenge that is calling for your care, support, nurturing, healing? They're the kind of questions I'd be asking because of all the Aries. Now, another person with Aries in the 8th house might not have challenges in their interpersonal life, might not have any matters to do with death or dying, but may feel that, hang on, I'm at a point in my life I can dive very, very deeply into the esoteric. Yeah, this is a person with an elevated Uranus, and the 8th house is a deep dive. Yeah, so it's possible that there's a deep dive into the spiritual and the esoteric. But I can't rule out that there could be major changes in the significant relationship or some other issues to do with death and dying. Okay, and I'm not for a minute suggesting that this person's going to die, because we can have transformation of the ego, where aspects of the shyness or the sometimes when there's a lot of Virgo earlier in the life, we don't boost ourselves. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Yeah. And it may be that that sort of too much self-deference needs to be stripped away, thrown away because there's work to do. Okay, the Saturn Neptune, there it is, number 1 and number 4. And the reason why I've picked on that is because this person has Saturn in Cancer in the 7th degree. So as an astrologer, I immediately know that come April, Saturn will be square Saturn. So this is a 7-year crossroads in terms of a reality check. And it's to do with the family. Saturn's in Cancer. It's to do with most likely the intimate partner. There's that theme again. So there may be some tough, hard choices. Now, one person with a pattern like that might have had a grandmother pass away and they've got an inheritance. So that means they can pay off their mortgage or they can help their kids out. Because, of course, the 8th house has also a great deal to do with shared money. Someone else with that pattern might find that they're living on a shoestring and it's getting difficult financially for different reasons, and something has to give. Somebody else with that pattern might find that they're okay, but their kids need money. Yeah, it's to do with the family and Saturnian matters. So I can't tell. Is it the finances of the family? Is it the health of the family? Is there a health crisis in the family? Does someone in the family move to the next stage? Is someone less dependent or more dependent? Because what happens when Saturn's in Cancer is sometimes there's a dependency. There are family members who are dependent upon you. Yeah, I don't know the answer to those questions, but that's the sort of conversation I'd be having with the person around the Saturn square, because it's a 7-year Saturn square. And then I immediately say, hang on a minute, this person's born in the 40s. Do they need more help? Have they been propping up the family for, a year and a day or decades? And do they actually say, really, I need help? Can someone help me? Which of my kids or my grandchildren can be there for me? Yeah. So all of those things are possible. Other things to notice is Chiron, there it is, 25 degrees of Aries, is square the nodes. See the nodal axis? 27 Cancer. So there's a theme associated with the family or the spiritual path or both, and either a breakthrough or a crisis. Now, one person with Chiron square the nodes will access a past life that helps them to understand all kinds of things, and they emerge with greater emotional resilience. Somebody else will have a crisis in the family and a family member will go to hospital. Yeah? I can't tell which, but I can see Chiron square the nodes. Yeah. The south node in this person's chart is connected to Saturn. Yeah. So the health, the responsibilities as a parent that involve health, that's all the Virgo and the south node. There's some kind of redrawing of the contracts is the way I'd describe it. So when kids are younger, you go, right, well, you're 14, now you've got to do this on your own. I'm not going to pick up that for you anymore. When your kids are 30, you go, okay, well, I'm not responsible for that. So it's an addressing, a karmic addressing of the who owes who what within the family, and it may come about through a crisis. And the answer to the question or the crisis is that the resolution must be something completely new. There's all these planets of Aries in the 8th house. Yeah. Fortunately, Chiron, transiting Chiron in 25 Aries, is trining the sun. So I don't think it's the individual person facing their own death or their own mortality, not at all. I think this is very healthy and healing. But I would be saying to the person, look after your own health. Look after your heart. Look after your upper back. Look after your well-being. Say no, which of course the Virgo stellium is not very good at. Say no in areas where you can say no so that you can nurture yourself. Yes, and of course, Chiron at 25 degrees is activating the Mars. Now, the Mars in Virgo there's a tendency to self-negate. Yeah. So that's what not to do, not to put the self at the very end of the line, but to actually say, I have needs, I have to verbalize them, I have to talk about them, I have to address them. They're serious, they're important, and I can't pretend they don't exist. Yeah. So this is self-healing. Okay. What else can I tell you? Uranus is sneaking up towards the midheaven. The midheaven is 2.5 degrees Gemini. So I know as an astrologer that Uranus is going to get there between May and June. So this is a shake-up coming. You know, this is a shake-up, and I can't tell. Is it exactly what the doctor ordered? Is it a wonderful breakthrough, or is it something out of left field that's destabilizing? I don't know the answer to the question, but I know the timing. It's between May and June, late May, early June, Uranus gets to the midheaven. Now, one person with a pattern like that will go, that's it. I'm finally and fully, completely retiring. Somebody else might sell their house. Somebody else might start thinking about what am I going to do in my older age going forward? Any or all of these things are possible. Yeah. And the eclipse that falls on 17th of February is directly opposite the sun, falls on the earth in the 7th house. So there's a very strong message about healing and looking after the self, embracing new life changes, spelling things out to family members, being there for who you can be there for, but not for everybody. It's possible that there's some focus around the life partner because of the 8th house and the 7th house. Yes, so kind of dramatic. And the thing is that a lot of people are having fairly dramatic transits between now and, let's say, the Asala Festival because of this lineup of planets. And by the time we get past June, the planets start to fan out a bit and it's not so intense. So this is intense, but it's equally intense for many, many people in their charts at the moment, which simply means that you don't have to be an astrologer. There's a few of the links that I've used. You don't have to be an astrologer. So there's the link to the last talk about Neptune. There's the link to the solar eclipse overview. There's the link to Zachary's notes on Nibiru. And these will be in the my brain's gone, in the PDF. And you might have noticed I've stopped posting things on the private Heavens Above page. So what I might start doing is emailing the group with the PDF so that you can easily access the links. Okay, so intense times between now and the full moon in the Gemini Sagittarius full moon, whatever date that will be, sometime in May probably. So hang on to your hat and connect into your lineage. That's all I'll say. Bye for now.